History isn't written by the victors, it's rewritten by the executioners. Imagine a world where entire empires are deleted like a corrupted file, cities of gold turned into nameless dust, kings whose very shadows were forbidden from the record. We're taught that history is a straight line, but there are massive jagged holes in our timeline. Holes left behind by civilizations that were too advanced, too strange, or too dangerous to be allowed to exist. They didn't just collapse, they were purged. Today, we are digging up what was meant to stay buried. Welcome to the void. Before we break the seal on these forbidden realms, hit subscribe to join our search for the truth they tried to hide. Let's look at the first civilization they scrubbed from the maps. Number 1. The Kingdom of Yam, the Sahara's forbidden ghost. Deep under the shifting sands of the Sahara lies a ghost that refuses to stay dead. We call it the Kingdom of Yam. Over 4,000 years ago, Egyptian pharaohs spoke of Yam with a mix of desperate greed and absolute terror. It wasn't just a neighbor, it was a rival superpower hidden in a place where no one should have been able to survive. Royal records describe caravans of hundreds of donkeys returning from the deep desert laden with exotic wonders and magical items that redefined luxury. But here's the irony. If you look at the official royal maps of the Old Kingdom, Yam is a ghost. It's a blank space, a deliberate, calculated void. The Egyptians didn't just stop trading with them, they performed a ritualistic deletion. In the tombs of the very explorers who found Yam, their names were hacked away from the stone by state-sanctioned vandals. The coordinates to the kingdom were systematically scrubbed from every scroll in the royal library. It was as if the pharaohs realized that the existence of Yam proved they weren't the only divine masters of the world. Imagine a civilization so sophisticated it turned the death trap of the Sahara into a highway of wealth. A people who mastered the desert long before we thought it was possible. Archaeologists today are finding pieces of the puzzle, but never the picture. They find high-end pottery in regions that have been barren for millennia, relics of a society that was erased before it could be remembered. The scary part? We haven't found the city because it wasn't lost to time. It was buried by an empire that wanted to be the only story left in the book. They didn't just kill the people of Yam, they killed the memory of them. But the sand is finally starting to talk, and the first thing it's telling us, everything we know about the Bronze Age, is a curated lie. Number 2. The Silver Ghosts of Tartessos. Imagine a civilization so wealthy that the Greeks literally believed their mountains were made of solid silver. Welcome to Tartessos, the empire at the edge of the world. During the 9th century BC, this kingdom sat at the mouth of the Mediterranean, acting as the ultimate gatekeeper of the Atlantic. They were the masters of metal, controlling the tin and silver that fueled the entire Bronze Age. But then, the records go cold, dead cold. In a span of just a few decades, Tartessos didn't just decline, it was liquidated from human memory. One day, they were the wealthiest traders on Earth. The next, they were treated like a ghost story told by frightened sailors. History tells us they were probably just a small trading hub, but the archaeology tells a much darker tale. Researchers have found massive Tartessian temples buried under layers of intentional debris, ritually sealed as if someone was trying to lock a secret in a vault. In these ruins, they discovered pits filled with the skeletons of hundreds of sacrificed horses. This wasn't a slow collapse or a natural disaster, it was a systematic scorched earth exit. The Carthaginians and later the Romans realized that if Tartessos ceased to exist in the books, they could seize the silver mines without anyone asking questions. They doctored the maps and turned a thriving superpower into a myth, a whisper, a shadow. They didn't just steal their gold, they stole their right to have been real. Tartessos was deleted so the next empire could write its own legend over the ashes. Number 3. The Etruscans, the real architects of the Eternal City. Rome wasn't built in a day, it was stolen in a night. We are taught that the Romans were the ultimate innovators, the fathers of law, architecture, and the very foundation of the West. But that is the world's most successful PR campaign. Before Rome was even a collection of mud huts, the Etruscans were masters of the Italian peninsula. They had advanced irrigation, paved streets, and a culture so progressive that women held actual social status, something the Romans found absolutely scandalous. The Etruscans gave Rome its alphabet, its stone arches, and even the iconic purple-bordered toga. But here is the dark irony. As Rome grew, it developed a deep, burning insecurity. They couldn't stand the fact that their divine city was actually built on the blueprints of a neighbor they considered decadent. So they didn't just conquer the Etruscans, they committed a total cultural lobotomy. The Romans launched a centuries-long campaign to absorb the technology while systematically burning the books. They turned the Etruscan language, a unique tongue unrelated to any other in Europe, into a silent riddle. Today we have thousands of Etruscan inscriptions and we still can't fully translate them. Why? Because the Romans made sure there were no teachers left. They took the Etruscan funeral rites and turned them into the blood-soaked gladiator games for entertainment. They took their gods, renamed them, and then claimed they'd been Roman all along. It was a total identity theft on a continental scale. The Etruscans weren't lost to time. They were swallowed whole by a predator that then pretended it had always been the apex. Rome didn't just win the war, they won the timeline, and they made sure the original architects were evicted from history forever. Number 4. The White Huns, the scourge of the Silk Road. History has a funny way of forgetting the people who almost ended it. Meet the Hephthalites, or as the terrified chronicles of the 5th century called them, the White Huns. They weren't just a nomadic tribe, they were a geopolitical nightmare that broke the back of the ancient world. While the Western Roman Empire was falling, these guys were doing something even more impossible. They descended from the mountains of Central Asia and turned the mighty Sassanid Persian Empire into a literal ATM. They captured the Persian king twice, forcing one of the most powerful men on earth to bow in the dirt and pay a ransom of millions in silver. Then they turned east and shattered the Gupta Empire's golden age in India, leaving a trail of ash where philosophy and art once flourished. But here's the twist. For a group that controlled the heart of the Silk Road for over a century, they left behind 0 books, 0 records, 0 identity. The erasure was a joint venture in historical cleansing. Their enemies, the Persians and the Turks, eventually teamed up for a singular purpose: the total liquidation of the Hepthalite legacy. They didn't just want them dead, they wanted them unborn. They burned every encampment, melted every coin with a Hunnic face, and executed any scribe who dared to record their origins. Even their physical appearance was a mystery designed to strike fear. Archaeologists have found their remains with skulls intentionally elongated into alien towering shapes. They were monsters by design and ghosts by decree. The White Huns were so terrifying that the world agreed on a collective lie that they never existed at all. They are the dark stain on the 5th century that was scrubbed until the parchment bled. Number 5. The alien faces of Sanxingdui. In 1986, a group of workers at a quiet brickyard in Sichuan, China, hit something hard. It wasn't a rock, it was a face that looked like it had fallen off a spaceship rather than crawled out of the Bronze Age. Welcome to Sanxingdui, the civilization that broke the history books before they were even finished. 3,000 years ago, while the rest of the world was struggling with basic tools, these people were casting massive 9-foot-tall bronze trees and masks with bulging telescopic eyes. Their art looks like a fever dream. Their technology was centuries ahead of their neighbors, but here is the chilling irony. China is home to the most meticulously kept historical records in human history. They have lists of every tax collector, every minor drought, and every foot soldier from the ancient world. Yet in the millions of scrolls written by the early dynasties, there is a total deafening silence regarding Sanxingdui. They weren't just forgotten, they were intentionally unmentioned. They lived right next door to the cradle of Chinese civilization, yet they were treated like a glitch in the matrix that needed to be patched out. Why? Because they didn't fit the narrative. They didn't look like the right ancestors, and their existence challenged the idea of a single unified origin for the empire. So the scribes simply stopped writing. They looked the other way until the earth itself forgot. The ultimate twist? When the site was first discovered, the findings were so un-Chinese that they were reportedly kept under wraps for years, while officials figured out how to explain them away. History isn't a window, it's a filter. We aren't just uncovering the past, we are finding the pieces the censors missed. The scariest thought isn't that these people died out, it's that right now, someone is probably deciding which parts of our world are too inconvenient to be remembered. The ink is always wet and the eraser is always ready. That's all for today. Subscribe if you love discovering the dark side of everyday life.